Okay, it's recording.
But you've just got to get this also, Steffi.
God.
Good evening, everybody. Assalamu alaikum, namaste, vanakkam, and I greet you in all the pleasantries in this most beautiful rainbow nation of ours called South Africa. Tonight is our virtual launch of the Joint Ratepayers, Joint eThekwini Ratepayers Association. This has been in the making, or rather in discussion, for a long time now. And it's very, very long overdue that we get a Ratepayers Association going with an umbrella body, with all the other sort of associations going. I remember in the past, back in Joburg, we used to call it the Federation of Ratepayers Association and the Federation of Residents Association. So there's a lot of variation. We try and get everybody under one umbrella with one vision, moving in one direction. I think just for far too long, communities, residents have been taken advantage of by the municipality, by the councillors, and by a whole lot of other people in the powers that be. So we need to take back ownership of our streets, of our communities, and with that, as community leaders, to tell the councillors, to tell the municipality, you know, enough is enough. We want you to do for us what we're asking you to do. And that is where this is going to be the sort of backbone or platform in the direction which we're going to go. So our, I don't know how to introduce this person. His name is Mr. Imtiaz Sayed. I've worked with him for a very, very long time, still working for him, with him. I've got our other colleagues here, Zain, Steffi, and everybody else that's brought all these things together on one platform. And tonight we want to launch it, and let this be the stepping stone for everybody else to take forward. So it's about community activism. It's about taking ownership of our communities and telling municipality that we are the ratepayers and we are telling you what to do with our money. Because for far too long have we seen councillors filling the potholes and taking photographs of them and putting it on Facebook and say, oh yeah, I fixed up this pothole and guess where I am. Those days are over. Service delivery is not just about filling potholes or fixing a leak. And as India said in the past, Band-Aid, we keep on Band-Aiding. So we need to break away from that kind of sort of a mental conceptualization of that and fixing up our community, starting from grassroots level. And one of the things is the Ratepayers Association, very, very broad term service delivery. In there falls education, healthcare, wellness, the works, and we need to go forward in terms of this. So, Mr. Imtiaz Sayed. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam. Thanks, Pat. Sorry, it's been rather a hectic day today, running between a few things. So I am a little bit unprepared for this virtual launch. And as always, in that unpreparedness comes out the exact truth of why we want to do what we want to do and why we're going about forming these sorts of organizations. I think let me start by speaking to why do we need the eThekwini Joint Ratepayers Association. We have over the past years been called into many ratepayers meetings. And we found the difference between the different agendas of ratepayers varied across the way, and rightfully so. It all depended on what the priorities were. But ratepayers meetings were in fact quickly formulated or quickly convened for the purposes of a priority that rose at the time. And we believe that the ratepayers associations in all areas need to be functional and in their space, doing the work that needs to be done, speaking to municipalities and councillors the way they need to be spoken, and with a clear understanding and direction of what it is they need to do. And with that in mind, we've decided to conceptualize the eThekwini Joint Ratepayers Association. To be clear, the eThekwini Joint Ratepayers Association would, in our conceptualization, be apolitical, however, would require sort of a political backing from whoever it is that is in that ward. So when I say this, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you're part of the eThekwini Joint Ratepayers Association, and as you all know, we did have a launch of the Active Citizens Coalition the other day. It's not necessary that it is a part of the Active Citizens Coalition. It isn't. It actually speaks to having autonomous bodies which creates sort of an environment wherein people from different backgrounds can speak to their councillors directly. And we want to force this issue, and it doesn't necessarily need to align to the party that we've actually formed. And I'm going to speak to this. I think that's where we've sort of erred here is we formed a party and then we're launching the Ratepayers Association. And I think in our wisdom, we needed to have been the other way about. So with that being said, I just want to be clear that it's not necessarily that the eThekwini Joint Ratepayers Association is an affiliate of the Active Citizens Coalition. However, it would be fair to say that in the eThekwini Joint Ratepayers Association, all councillors, irrespective of party, need to be part of those forums ex officio, based on the fact of how we developed or conceptualized the institution of these ratepayers associations. And the memorandum of understanding with the current councillors or the current PR councillors within those particular wards. It's imperative that the councillors, no matter which party they represent, are in fact sitting ex officio without taking decision for the ratepayers themselves. So I think that's the part I needed to clarify. When it comes down to being an umbrella body, what we found is that in many areas, and I've said this before in many of the different things that we do, is that we find ourselves in a space of being coordinators. And through best practice and best understanding, we don't necessarily have all the answers, and never should we ever believe that we do. However, there are leaders out there that do have the answers. And I think we've taken it upon ourselves through this platform, the Joint eThekwini Joint Ratepayers Association, to say that let us all speak to one another, let us get a clear understanding, and from there, learn who has done what and what's best practice based on the problem and based on the solutions of that problem. And now let us take those particular individuals and tie them in with people that have similar problems or have sort of similar problems wherein we can now develop solutions. So the eThekwini Joint Ratepayers Association would basically be a think tank for all ratepayers association for us to understand, analyze, and problem solve the issues we face as a community. I want to go into something that's very clear to me. And Zain always picks on me, but the word I always use is in understanding. So in understanding of change, and when we speak of change, we've learned along the way that change doesn't necessarily mean an actual solution to a problem, wherein it was decided that this is the solution to a particular problem, no matter what it is. But it was in fact the fact that there was a discussion around it. Now, let me speak to this a little bit. It's through dialogue that change is seeded. And if we allow the platforms of dialogue to continue, the platforms of dialogue in terms of having these eThekwini Joint Ratepayers Associations is to say that we've now understood what the problem is. And 90% of the time, we find solutions to those problems based on those communities identifying what the problem is and then forming them into work groups for them to resolve their own issues. Or for that matter, if they don't find resolve, or they figure out that resolve comes from a different government department or different capacity of people, then we take it on our shoulders to those departments and to the system. So change, by nature of what change is, it's not necessarily an action. It's not necessarily something that's written on a piece of paper and say, this is what change is. It's actually about having a debate and a discussion. And through that mentality, change comes in drastically and slowly without us even understanding. And I'll give you an example of this. As we were youngsters, we've set out goals within our life. And as an 18-year-old boy, I'll give you my sort of life, right? It was to be at the age of 24, 25, married, with probably 2 children, with a nice car and a nice house. That was my dream. But once we got to the age of 24, 25, we didn't realize by us seeding those ideas of change in our minds at the age of 18, we actually achieve them without realizing it. And when we come to the age of 24, 25, guess what happens? Can we not have a bigger house? Can we not have, one more child? Can we not now leave work and go into business? And that's what change is, but we don't realize it. And the realization of it is where we are. The realization of change is where we are and what we speak to. So no matter which community we go to, and I'm going to say this over and over again, every single community has challenges, no matter where they are. The level of challenges they face is different based on how quickly they responded. So our idea is to say that if there's a particular grouping of people that have moved far ahead in terms of change within their wards and within their areas in terms of ratepayers, it's for us to take their best practice, see what they have done, and now implement those very things in our areas. And an example of that would be currently the vagrant we have in our areas at the moment. And the vagrancy situation escalates in areas where there are middle-income homes. Why is that? When you go to affluent areas like the Umhlanga Rocks and Durban North and La Lucia and Musgrave and all of these areas, it's very limited in terms of vagrancy and homelessness because those people don't give. So we've learned that don't give is actually a campaign that we need to run. It's for us now to implement that to address the issue of, firstly, homelessness, vagrancy. Yes, agreed. The city needs to do something about it. It is their mandate. We as civil society need to address these issues because we are compassionate. And I totally agree with outreach and assisting and doing all of those things. However, it needs to be done in a formalized manner, by which there's sustainable change to things. And we need to firstly understand why these things happen and what is the change that we actually want to bring about in an informed and sustainable manner. When it comes down to understanding the issues based on municipalities, I'm going to go into this very, very briefly, and I think I spoke about it the other day as well, is that we currently hold out our hands with begging bowls to speak to municipalities and ask them for assistance. I need us to bring change to that mindset. Municipalities, government, departments within municipalities, they basically are all state-owned enterprises which charge consumers for a particular service, and in so doing, they are supposed to provide that service. So therefore, we shouldn't be begging for it. We should clearly identify what it is we pay for and how do we go about making sure that those services are provided. That's important. But I'm going to speak to something a little bit different. If, for example, there was a business that operated in the space of providing us a particular service, like, for example, telecom before it was privatized. Now, the market was very different. They were the only service provider of telecommunications. And thereafter, competition came in terms of Vodacom and MTN and all of these different people starting to provide us data and doing all of those things. Now, if we relied on the service of one particular grouping, then the best would be the best that they can deliver, and we would just have to learn to accept it. Now, based on that argument, we are saying that we need to, as ratepayers, hold municipalities accountable. Why is our rates going up? First and foremost, we need to be clear in understanding that in 2007, June, there was from our rates being billed in terms of PQ, which was a rateable area by which we utilized within a municipality, and it was the standard across the way. However, post that, it became based on the municipal value of your home. Based on the fact that you have a home and it's worth, maybe 2 million rand or 1 million rand or whatever it is, a percentage of that we pay towards rates. And if you go into a particular area and if you look at the amount of money we pay towards municipalities in terms of rates, then in fact, we need to in turn speak to what are we getting in return. Now, if you go down into any particular area, and if we do proper assessments of each and every department that work our area in terms of parks, in terms of water and sanitation, stormwater, DSW, all of these different government departments that actually operate in our area, and rightfully so, we actually do pay them for that, because if you look at your electricity bill, it is an electricity bill. We are being charged for electricity. We are being charged for water and sanitation. We are being charged for refuse removal. And we need to then have oversight over those departments as ratepayers to say, in fact, are we being firstly billed the correct amount? Is there wastage and overusage in terms of overtimes and all of those things that comes on? And is the municipality being run in the way that it's supposed to be run most efficiently and cost effectively for the benefit of the ratepayer? And that's an argument for a different level as the eThekwini Joint Ratepayers Association, so that we can take up those arguments on behalf of communities at large. Now, in assessment of what we've been doing, the questions we have is that post 1994, what is it in our area that, and I'm not talking about provincial government, I'm not talking about national government and the national government's interventions. And nor am I picking on any particular party or councillor or anything like that. I'm speaking to this from a business standpoint and a business perspective, that if we look at each and every ward in the eThekwini municipality area, and if we go down, and you must remember that there is a right for us to know. And if we are able to get the information I'm speaking of, it'll be clear by us understanding why it is that we pay this much for electricity or this much for rates and all of these things. So let's just go into the discussion of electricity, right? Currently, it's a very contentious issue. People have been getting bills that are based on assessments and doing all of those things. Currently, eThekwini municipality is a service provider of electricity, and they in turn buy electricity of Eskom and provide us with that service. So if you go out into areas like Pietermaritzburg and all of these different areas, you'll see that the billing comes directly from Eskom and not through the municipality per se. Now, if we are being billed a certain percentage for electricity, and in fact it's bought in much cheaper, then the costs would have been in reticulating that service or the electricity to us directly. And based on that argument, if there is over expenditure in terms of overtime, in terms of ailing infrastructure, in terms of patch repairs, in terms of having too many resources or too many subcontractors paid a higher rate of income for their services, it then ultimately accumulates to the cost of the ratepayer. And that's an argument that we want to take to municipality. When it comes down to water and sanitation, if we have ailing infrastructures and they haven't been replaced in the past 40 years, and we perpetually are faced with mainline leaks, water shortages, and those kinds of things, we're firstly looking at the wastage perspective. We're looking at based on repairs vis-a-vis mainline renewal in a sustainable developed manner with proper project management. So in essence, what we're saying is that our ratepayers associations, in fact, need to be proper project managers in development, having a clear understanding of what ward development means in terms of infrastructure, and that speaks to service delivery in itself. Now, when we come down, and I'm going to go very quickly into the informal settlements. The reason for having the eThekwini Joint Ratepayers Association is that people that currently pay rates, right? And it purposefully leaves out the informal areas where rates are not paid. The reason for this is if we call it a civic body and we make it a collective, then in fact there's no representation for the person that actually pays demands. And I say demand is that if you pay for a service, you have a right to demand for that service to be delivered. And notwithstanding the fact, for a different platform, we are forming different groupings or organizations for the informal areas to represent them in their needs. And their plight is great. I mean, housing and all these things speak to us as community leaders for us to discuss it, and we can't shy away from it. But we are saying that there needs to be a separate discussion when it comes to rates, and that's the current launch. There will be a launch of civic bodies that speak to those things and take their service delivery issues separately in terms of that. So when it comes down to the eThekwini joint ratepayers, I think I've covered it. We need all ratepayers associations to affiliate themselves to this body. I'm not too sure right now as to what the cost burdens might be, but there might be a nominal fee that might be charged for administrative purposes. The reason for that is we plan to have an office to escalate issues on behalf of ratepayers associations, to assist them in terms of getting the assistance that they require. And obviously, it's more an administrative role. And we'll obviously set that up as a back-end office to assist all eThekwini Joint Ratepayers Association members. So that's the idea, that's the concept, and that we feel is the way forward for all areas, irrespective of race, or anything like that. It's multiracial, it's open to all areas, provided that it is a rate-paying body or ratepayers association. And if you don't have one, then you'd call on us to formulate one within your area, look for leaders within your area that can assist you, give them the tools and the skills that they might require in order to run these organizations in terms of minute taking, in terms of having an understanding of what ward development is and how do we move forward from there. So I think without wasting anyone else's time, I think I'm going to refer back to Batman, and maybe you can open it up for any questions that might arise. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, thank you very, very much. Very informative there. I think everybody has a fair background in terms of what we want to do as a Joint Ratepayers, eThekwini Joint Ratepayers Association, and give people back the power that they so rightly deserve, because we are investing in the municipalities. So we have, I think, a fair share of everything that should be done. How's it, Zaid? That's you there. Any questions? Is there anything, any comments anybody would like to make directed at the topic of discussion? You're welcome to, now's your chance, please.
Hi. Hello.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Hello, Bo. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity. This is a question to the panel. I heard Mr. Imtiaz speak about dialogue and issues regarding dialogue, but I'm a bit disappointed. Here in South Africa, dialogue doesn't seem to be working, especially decent dialogue. So you can engage with municipalities, and I'm speaking from experience. I mean, right now, today, I've engaged in dialogue with 10111 to report an allegation of a shebeen being mushrooming up in my area. I mean, I've had such difficulty with that 10111 people manning that lines. And unfortunately, I couldn't even get a proper undertaking that they will investigate my allegations of a shebeen. So my question to your panel, dialogue doesn't seem to be working in South Africa. You can't sit on a table over a cup of tea and put your things forward and say, what is the way forward here, based on our constitutional imperatives, based on Public Finance Management Act, based on all the little rules and regulations that we have. It doesn't seem to be working. Right now, I'm in the Sapingo Hills. We've got garbage lying around. You phone DSW right now, they've got no proper answer for you. So you got a constitution that tells you about you have the right to a safe and hygienic environment. And yet when you quote that part to them, they don't seem to understand that. So I'm saying to you, Mr. Sayed, perhaps it's time we engage with municipalities on a more higher level. And that higher level I'm speaking about right now is bringing the constitution to the forefront, taking these guys to court. So in other words, using a legal tool to make these guys catch that wake-up call. Because we keep addressing emails, we keep addressing letters, we want to engage in dialogue, it doesn't seem to work. I mean, you must put it in context. We've got old people living in the area. Again, in the Sapingo Hills, a few days ago, there was no water. How are the vulnerable people? You phone the hotline, you lodge a complaint, you get a reference number, there's no tankers out there, or sometimes a tanker do come out, but there's so many old people. There's so many vulnerable people, people with disabilities, people living with, I mean, if you look at ESCOM, people are on ventilators and what they call, I think, nebulizers, they need electricity. And these things are all so negative. So I'm saying to you guys, when you're launched, it is important that we set up a fund. Perhaps that fund is going to be used for litigation. And perhaps then municipality and government will catch that wake up. Because when we look at the Zondo Commission right now, I mean, all these guys, the law says something else to what all these guys who are in powerful positions. They come into the Zondo Commission, they made me feel very small. Judge Zondo really tells them straight, this is not what the law says. So these guys were doing things that were actually violating all our constitutional rights. And we as citizens were sitting back and allowing that to happen. So in conclusion, I'd just like to say we need to take the legal route in most instances when we're not getting any proper feedback from our dialogue. Yes, engage in dialogue, but give them a limited time limit and say, you know what, 2 weeks is enough or 21 days is enough. If we don't get any proper answers, we're reverting to court. I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Bo. Imtiaz?
Let me try and get into that. So, Mr. Bo, if you can just send us your cell phone number as well. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate you on your enthusiasm with regard to community-based issues. And it's exactly individuals like you that speak to us as a nation leading forward and moving ahead in terms of getting things for our people and getting our community active and involved in our direct community issues. So I'm going to touch very quickly on the liquor issue. What we need to understand is that first and foremost, 10111 is the wrong platform for us to be engaging regarding a liquor outlet. In every single station, there is someone called a DFO. A DFO is in charge of all firearms within an area. And I'm speaking to this, I'm going to change my cap very quickly and put on a community policing forum one, of which I'm a part of. So in your area is Spingo Hills, there's Mr. Aiden Joseph, who is your cluster
David.
person. Yes, Aiden David, sorry.
David. Yeah.
Sorry, I got his name incorrect. So with that being said, it's important to understand that we needed to have tabled that at your community policing forum meeting and insist that we intervention. Currently, those interventions happen based on different things. We call stakeholders meetings to stations to address that issue because it comes down to the Criminal Procedure Act, wherein it is their obligation to manage liquor outlets within an area. Coming into the second point, and I'm saying I agree with you totally, but it's important for us to fully understand where to table our issues, and that's an imperative. So our job would now become one of saying that if there's a is for us to assess where the mean that we should have talk shops. Absolutely, we're tired of having talk shops. And the only reason we have talk shops is because when we identify our problems, we don't necessarily understand where the solution should come from. And it's now left to us to identify that and give you those tools to assist you moving forward. When it comes down to the issues of electricity, water, and all of that, we currently have an eThekwini service delivery WhatsApp group that speaks to all areas that says, if you're having an issue, let us escalate. But what we've got to be cognizant of is that if we get all ratepayers associations, and again, I say that service delivery should be spoken to in terms of the municipality business, right? And if those services are not rendered within a period of 24 hours, and municipality will tell you under any circumstances that yes, there is a problem in your area, we are attending to it, and it's going to be 24 hours. I'm saying we need to understand it from a trade perspective that certain things do take time. But more importantly, it's having an understanding why do these things occur so often in our areas if we are paying for a service, and to address ailing infrastructure, to address sustainability of the services that we are being provided. So if it's DSW and there's a particular issue that we're facing, and it's a perpetual one, there's a certain responsibility of community, firstly, to understand where that filth is coming from, to address the issue locally in our communities, and thereafter, if it is the responsibility of municipalities wherein they're derelict in their duties, then 100% I agree. We need to take it to the heads of those departments, put it down to say, what are the sustainable solutions for us to not have this problem any longer? And when I speak to this in terms of illegal traders. I speak to it in terms of vagrancy and begging. There's a bylaw against it. I speak to it in terms of, us having power cuts, and I'm not talking about load shedding here. I'm talking about if our area is faced by perpetual power cuts because there's an informal settlement across the way that has illegal connections and it perpetually blows up the boxes, then it's left to us to realize where we need to take that discussion to. It comes down to different departments. And our job or our task has been over the past 4 years to understand that space, to understand where our problems are, and understand who is responsible for those problems, and then taking it to them in terms of an argument. And coming into the issue of the legal teams, we do have something called the eThekwini Joint Professionals Organization, which speaks to all educated people. We're talking about teachers, we're talking about lawyers, we're talking about doctors. In order for us to assist communities, we must mobilize everyone in their professional space to assist in their way. Because everyone, I think, as a nation, we all have our own social responsibilities. It's for us as a collective to take on those individuals, put them in their space, have them or grow them a lane, and speak to them to say that these are the requirements of community at large. And I agree with you, there should be a legal team backing us. We should have a slush fund in order to take municipalities up on behalf of different communities based on the priorities that we have. So I think that should cover you. If there's anything else, you can revert to me. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Sayed. Just a comment from Yanis. He says that I think many communities have the same problems: basic services, water and electricity, waste collections, parks maintenance, street lighting, roads, maintenance of municipal properties, illegal connections, student accommodation, and the list goes on. So those are the problems we are all saddled with in our communities, the very same common areas. And I think this is very much the reasons why we want to get the ratepayers associations going in our areas. Any other comments from anyone, please? You're welcome to make a comment now. Obi, would you like to come in there? Your mic's on mute.
Hi there. Obi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay.
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm from Crossmoor in Chatsworth. What I find that in the Chatsworth area, all we have is civic associations. We don't have a ratepayers association. And this was my thinking of forming a ratepayers association, with the simple fact we were faced with the transit camp issue last year, and we couldn't get the support of the civic because they represent both the formal and informal settlements. To them, it was a conflict of interest. So my thinking is we need to ascertain which areas don't have ratepayers association and form that first and bring it under the umbrella of the Joint Ratepayers Association. We've got major issues around us and lots of parallels all over. And we need to address what we have locally. And if we don't have any joys, instead of going to court, I know that COCTA is holding municipalities responsible for what is going on in the region. You know, we don't want to start dipping into our pockets and contributing to a legal petty cash box there, especially if we have means to address it, you know, among whatever organizations or departments which has been set up for that reason. Well, that's my thinking on it.
Thank you very much, Omi, on that. And yes, COCTA does run the municipalities, and they're very influential over there. They've got structures in place that I think we should go and use those structures. Mr. Sayed, please come in there.
Absolutely. I think Omi's raised a very important point. We got to understand that COCTA, they in fact are the financiers of municipalities directly in terms of infrastructure and all of that. And yes, they have opened their doors to say that if there are any issues within municipalities, it can be addressed through them. And right, but I'd like to go into something very different, right? Currently, we see of late, and I think Omi would bear witness to this in the Crossmoor area, we We've seen it in the Clear Estate area. We've seen it in Yanis's area within Cato Crest. And the issue comes down to land invasion. Currently, there is the land expropriation bill that is up for comment, and they've allowed 60 days for that, and strategically so. It's got to be understood that communities at large need to start addressing these issues in terms of their inputs as to what they believe land expropriation should be without compensation, and what is the way forward regarding that. So in terms of that, there needs to be a think tank formed to address the issues. And if there are any, and if we are against the land expropriation bill, in whatever reason we need to get professionals in that space to understand it. So I'm going to speak very briefly on a particular issue that we're dealing with currently, and it's in the Newlands area we're in. There's been an area planned, and there is open space. Obviously, at the point when it was formalized, was to speak to leaving open space open for that community later on to decide what they want to do with the area. But we see that there's been a move by municipality or human settlements in municipality to move that from residential 180. Firstly, conjoin the balance of the ERFs, and then move it towards rezoning it from special 180, which basically allows in extent of 82 homes to be built over that area if it ever was special 180 in the first place, and now take it to general usage, which allows blocks of flats to come up with 420 homes with an ETA report and all of these things. So there's great moves by municipalities to speak to urban land at the moment that are already serviced. And this is something that we've got to be very wary of. It's happening all over the place. We've got to be cognizant of it. They're calling it gap housing or whatever it is you want to call it. But obviously there is something more to it and something more behind it that we need to understand and speak to. And the reason for us moving very quickly into these eThekwini joint ratepayers associations is that as much as there might be neighbors of these properties that might want to complain, and I call them the forefront complainers, right? So when we've got informal settlements, we want to move to saying that the people that are at the forefront of an informal settlement should get rates rebates. And likewise, people that are facing land invasion and are at the forefront of it should be the first responders when it comes down to a move to rezoning or development in open spaces. And we need to see how do we protect these open spaces for the further development of the current community that resides there without bringing in a racial connotation to it, because as we know, all areas are open for sale. If people want to buy, they can buy anywhere they like. So it isn't racial, right? But I'm saying that if areas were originally planned, and this is through town planning, that they plan an area and they purposefully leave open spaces or green belts within areas. And if those spaces are being taken by municipality and are being issued rezoning certificates and are rezoned to develop, then we as a community need to understand, is it beneficial for community, or would it bring in a whole different spectrum of issues that communities might face in terms of safety and security, in terms of health and sanitation, and in terms of everything government related that is required in communities for them to survive. That's also something that's very important, and that's moving us towards ensuring that ratepayers associations are formed in all areas. So I'm asking and I'm calling on every single individual, if there isn't joint ratepayers associations, call on us for us to come out with you. We will be forming committees based on people that join up with us to address the different issues, and it's based on their experience. We might not necessarily have all the answers. We can take people from different areas that have dealt with a particular issue to come and assist you with your issues. That's the space we want to be in as the eThekwini Joint Ratepayers Association. Thanks, Bat.
Thank you, Mr. Said. Just again to enlighten everybody the importance of the ratepayers associations and why we need to have this here. I'm just looking at one of the ward groups, and again, this is either it's the inaptitude of the councillors or they just take everybody for granted. Now, again, we have water breakages, or rather, we have water disruption in the areas. Ailing infrastructure, everything is going to pieces. In our area here in Overport over the last few days, we've had about 6, 7, up to 10 pipes bursting at the same time. And the councillors are not proactive into doing what they need to be doing. So they're not really giving the community solutions. And people ask for water tankers. They're wasting time. All they're doing, they're just band-aiding, and they're telling you stuff like, okay, they've been on site, backfilling is happening. At this point, I cannot give a time. The councillors need to be held accountable in terms of telling us exactly what's happening, a proper report, and do your job, because you're getting paid a big amount of money exactly for that. So that's just another point or a different angle in terms of why we need the ratepayers associations. Anybody else, please, you're welcome to give input and ask questions. We would like a vibrant, robust discussion here, please. You can also leave your, if you guys haven't filled in the survey form, the link can be sent to all of you. If you drop your numbers in the group chat, my co-moderator will then pick up all of that and get that done. So guys, please, the floor is open. The floor is open, please.
Me again. I don't want to hog it, but I just need to touch on it, that we have 3 wards, Ward 17, 71, and 72 in Chatsworth. All are ANC councillors. And basically, we have had no service delivery. From Ward 17, the last we saw the councillor was on the 7th of April, 2017. As much as we've reported it, we're getting no joy. We've got no service delivery. That is why it's incumbent on us as community activists to step up and sort out our own problems. So, nobody's listening. Even if you write to the speaker, it gets pushed under the carpet. So what do we do here?
Thanks for that, Omi. Just to take you back to COCTA, COCTA has a dedicated person or persons to deal with the lack of service given by the ward councillors. So they should be reported to that particular person in COCTA, and then COCTA will then handle that. I think we're not using the sort of stakeholders services well enough, and neither does the community know who to go to, what are the reporting structures, and how should we deal with these kind of things. And that's where the ratepayers associations, I think, it's going to come in and fill in those gaps, and we're now going to take control and take ownership of exactly what we do. Because at the end of the day, Ms. Nai, who is really paying the councillors? We are, as taxpayers. So they have to answer to us. Imtiaz, do you want to respond to that?
I think
Hi.
I think, Batman, we need to also, I think I'm going to go back to the beginning where I said that irrespective of who the councillor is, whether you're PR or whether you're the councillor, you should be ex officio sitting on the ratepayers associations, because when it comes down to the issue of campaigning, right, then it's all promises and everything is said in terms of what they're going to deliver and how they're going to come forward and assist communities moving forward. But what we also need to be cognizant of is that when councillors come into council, so to speak, and they become councillors, they have no experience in that space. They fully don't understand what their role is, because there is no leadership program within parties to say that, this is the job of a councillor and you represent people. Do you have their mandate, and do you have these things, and what are you doing about ensuring that your community is uplifted? So we're going to speak to the points of ward development plans. So that's developed by the ratepayers associations in our understanding. And if we have the councillors on board, now remember, I want to be very clear in this. This is not about party politics. We irrespective of whether it's an ANC councillor, DA councillor, a minority front councillor, TA, whatever it is, it's not the issue. The issue for us is understanding. And then, in both the last elections, my community at large asked me, Imtiaz, who would you vote for? I always said, don't vote for the person. Don't vote for the party, vote for the person. Why? Because at the end of the day, ultimately, even though they might be affiliated or fielded by a particular party, you ultimately have to deal with the person. And based on the acumen of the person, of who they are and what they're able to achieve intellectually, is very important. And that's the key. Because if it's beyond their capacity to address you or assist you, then in fact, what are we doing? So we need to ensure that the right people are positioned that do in fact have an understanding of what the job description is before they in fact take on the job. You cannot get a plumber to do a mechanic's job. So if someone is coming, and this is why, and I know I'm swaying a bit into why we have the Active Citizens Coalition, is that it speaks to taking people that are active in their community and putting them forward because they've already got a background or a root in their community, have their community at heart, and want to do things that are beneficial to their community. Not necessarily that everything that they do would be accepted or understood in the space it needs to be, because like I mentioned earlier, that all communities have different challenges and different issues. And based on the priorities of a nation, we've got to understand that certain things might not be achievable. So some areas might say that we want free gym memberships, and that's not going to happen, you know? So I'm saying we've got to be reasonable in terms of what we are asking and what our asks are, but also with that, we need to have a certain level of accountability, and the mandates of what our community requires needs to come from the people that voted for the councillors to be in the area. So we are not pitching anything here that's politically motivated. We are pitching something here that speaks to allowing your councillor to understand you, dialogue with them, so that they can now clearly, without interpretation, take your issues directly to the departments that need to assist you. That's the basis by which we're forming the eThekwini Joint Ratepayers Association. So I think that basically covers us in terms of what we're expecting from community, because we clearly find that there's a lack in councillors that where they don't understand what communities actually need and how to build on what we already have. Instead, they're just trying to make everyone happy. And I you know, sometimes I speak through my statuses, and there's a saying there that says that if you wanted to make everyone happy, don't be a leader, sell ice cream. Currently, what we see is that our councillors want to lead us and they want to give everyone ice cream. It doesn't work. It can't work. Something that comes for the benefit of one side of the community will ultimately come at the cost to the other side of the community. It's that middle lane that we need to speak to, where it speaks to all and develops all and brings all to the fore. And correctly so, a civic body cannot speak on behalf of ratepayers only, because it is a conflict of interest. However, if you have a ratepayers body, it speaks to people that are paying for a service, and rightfully so. So if you're paying for a service, you're expecting that level of service to be returned. So I think that's where we are with regard to the eThekwini Joint Ratepayers Association.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Said. Mr. Said did speak on a ward development plan, and I'm going to reveal this evening that we do have a ward development plan that's been sort of in the making for a long time. It has been finalized. It was finalized last year. It took a long time for it to be. Sorry, I think I lost my feed here. Sorry, guys, I think I lost my. Am I still on?
Yes, you are.
Yes, you're still
Okay,
there.
all right. Okay, thanks. So the ward development plan is there. I'm looking at it now. It's a 17-page document which we had composed in discussing several issues of importance. And you know, one of those issues is that when the budgets are released, the councillors are not presenting the budgets effectively enough to the community, and there's no input to say this funds must be allocated to that project and whatever. So they're just getting the budget, doing what they think they should be doing, and unfortunately, the community is not consulted with. And then in the ward development plan, we also talk extensively about the role of the ward councillor, what the ward councillor should do, and what he shouldn't or she shouldn't really be doing. So that's quite a thing. But and just to give you very briefly, you know, we talk about what is community development. And community development is a process enabling communities to develop active, sustainable, and supportive environments in which people live and work. Community development as a philosophy is concerned with taking the journey from private concern in the community to a public action with the community. And a lot of this was what Imtiaz was speaking about earlier in terms of ward development. And through active participation and empowerment, community development encourages and supports the identification of barriers that prevent community members from participating in changing the issues that affect their lives. And this is exactly where the Ratepayers Association is going to fit in. Any comment on that, if anybody wants to give input?
Well, that is excellent when it comes to that planning. I think a lot of training will have to go into that. As I just want to touch on the problems we are experiencing in the Crossmoor Chatsworth area. We have goats walking around. We have street lights which don't work. We do not have a rail transportation system any longer due to cable theft. We have, what else? We have ongoing obstacles placed on the highway, which deliberately is causing accidents. So there are major issues here which needs attention. And we don't seem to be getting answers to a lot of it. And I feel this is where, by working collectively, we will be able to get more answers.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Omi. And one of the things one of the goals in the Ward Development Plan is caring for the social environment and upliftment of the environment. So it's pretty much comprehensive. And obviously, as we go along, we can develop it, and every ratepayers association falling under us can then develop this further. Mr. Said, you want to come in there?
Yeah, Bets, I think I think it's fair to say that we have done some work in terms of what we believe the Ratepayers Association should be doing. And obviously that IP will be transferred over all the affiliates that come on board to say that I'm in a particular area. Now, I just want to touch very quickly on something that speaks to who forms a Ratepayers Association. How big is a Ratepayers Association? There is no script regarding it. If you're an active citizen in your area and you have the benefit of your community at heart, then it's important for you to form that Ratepayers Association and start growing it in the circle that you are from. So even if it's on your street and you're facing challenges, have meetings on your street. And we speak to this all of the time. We firmly believe that there's only two things that people require. One is, and the priority has always been, with regard to safety and security, this is why we went the direction we did, in forming eThekwini Secure. That speaks to safety and security, making sure that people within areas have platform by which they can address their safety and security issues. And that was our initial brainchild that came out about 4 or 5 years ago, which runs now continuously, sustainably, and it actually assists communities moving forward in terms of its Facebook, and we going out into areas, assisting communities, partnering them with police, getting people onto the community policing forum platforms so that they can address those safety issues. However, we find ourselves in a space now where over the past 3 years, we've been dealing with service delivery issues, and getting into that understanding, we find ourselves in this space now where we need, and we found the need that for the need for us to form these ratepayers associations. And it's only based on the fact that we see there is a shortfall. If everything was fine, there'd be no need for this, right? We're lacking in terms of KPIs when it comes down to municipality on one side. We're lacking in terms of KPIs when what we're expecting from councillors are not delivered. We're lacking also in terms of KPIs when it comes down to what we expect from the communities. So the plan for the Joint Ratepayers Association is exactly how we formed eThekwini Secure, is that every single street needs to have 2 street reps. One speaks to crime and one speaks to grime. When I'm speaking to crime, remember these are 2 separate platforms, 2 separate discussions, and 2 separate people should in fact be running it, or else it becomes too much responsibility for one individual to take on this entire task, right? Now, if we can mobilize sustainably in all our areas and every single street in an area, brings up the issue of that particular street. We want street groups in every area. Every single area should have a street group. Now, whether your street group has 10 people or 5 people, it's irrespective. In that street group, there is a sense of community. We've lost that sense of community between us. We don't know who our neighbors are, and we don't want to address our neighbor's issue or our issue as a collective. And the only time we want to bring it up is when something affects us directly. So in a particular street, you might have 20 homes, and the only time someone wants to come forward and start a street committee or neighborhood watch or something like that is when he's had an incident at his home, but it's not in the interest of everyone else. So based on that, the argument comes down to, we only do it when we need it. And that's incorrect. So these things need to be sustainable in terms of how they do things and what they plan to achieve. So we want in every single street 2 members. One speaks to crime and one speaks to grime. I'm going to give out Zane's cell phone number now, right? It's 083-786-5096, and I'm going to give it out now, right? And I know he doesn't want me to give it out because he doesn't want so many people messaging him. But I give him those responsibilities, and it's his responsibility to take care of everything we do on social media and all of that. So Zain, sorry, I put you in a trap, but that's how it is. So anyway, everyone that needs to form their street committees, we've got basic plans of what a street committee should do. It should be talking about the lost dog and the lost cat and building that sense of community. You know, you don't have water, you ask your neighbor, your electricity ran off, you send a cable across. That's building Ubuntu, that's building the sense of community that we require. However, through those groups, we call them filters. You now start addressing the issues that we face. So for example, it could be a little thing like your street sign, right? When last have we all looked at our street sign and said, you know what, the street sign needs to be replaced? We haven't, because we're dealing with bigger. When have we looked at our curbs and verges and asked ourselves, when did municipality come by and sweep our streets? We haven't. We don't pay any attention to it. So these are the things that we need to speak to ratepayer associations about. Now, if you go into an area and you take up maybe 15 or 20 streets, and you can divide your area into little forums like you wish, right? Don't sit and call ourselves chairpersons, deputy chairpersons, conveners, interim committees. We give ourselves all of these titles and we put it on our shoulders. And then we want to close doors on people that want to assist us or want to address issues that they might have. And we now alienate our own community by doing this. We should have open meetings once a month, wherein only those street committee reps should attend. So now we won't be dealing with the issues that we've already dealt with, because as joint ratepayers associations, we would have given them the tools that they require to deal with the everyday issues. The plan we have is that those 15 or 20 streets would now bring in 20 representatives that now form your ratepayer association for those streets, right? And then you've got your other 15 or 20 people that speaks to crime, that has your crime meeting. And we can have these back to back. So you can call it an hour's meeting. It can be very quick if you're strategic and understand what you need to do. And we'll give you all of those insights as to how we run these things and what they do. Based on that, we're saying, if you've got 20 leaders who've already capacitated themselves in their streets and understood what needs to be escalated, then they bring those salient points. And when those 15 or 20 street reps are sitting in that meeting, you'd see that 20 of them would bring up exactly the same issue. It might be that the street lights are not working in all of those streets, one globe or two globes. It might be that DSW, after they do their pickup, there's no street sweeping. It might be 5 or 6. So through the administration of that ratepayer association, we now raise those arguments, obviously copying in the body that we plan to form that gives you the might that you might need to say that these are the issues we're facing. Can you address it? And then require a response from municipality as to what the solutions are going to be. That's our strategic plan. That's the plan we want to have. And that way, we're now addressing the issues without having 4 or 5 hour meetings. It would be now down, softened up, and only the important things brought up. And then we engage with those same leaders when we're having major issues. So we might have 2 streets that are affected by theft, right? We want all 20 to speak on behalf of those 2 streets. It speaks to mobilization. It speaks to protest action if we need to and go down that route. It speaks to calling municipality to account to us as community as to what they're doing about the solutions. It speaks to, for example, if we've addressed a particular issue, and it speaks to Bo's argument about, it might just be a dialogue platform and nothing really would happen. It speaks to us having an understanding of what the protocols are in terms of how do we address our issues. So the first process would be we complain to the councillor, we have them invited to the meeting, we table it for them, we give them a timeline, and thereafter we also email them immediately, give ultimatums and say within 7 or 14 days we need a response to this. And after that, we now send people to council, or we ask for those councillors to attend stakeholders meetings wherein we address the issue, would through discussion come up with a solution, and not necessarily those solutions would be a foolproof way to get rid of a problem. It might need to be changed later on, and we need to be very aware of this as well. Change by virtue of what it is speaks to us doing something which is an action. That action might be best practice based on us having an understanding of what we believe might be the solution to a problem that we might have. However, once we implement that solution, it might need to be tweaked, withdrawn, changed, or something else. So we should keep change as an open document. It shouldn't be said that, oh, okay, we've done something about the park, it didn't work, let's just let the park go to waste. No, it shouldn't be that way. We should now come up with different ideas to bring change to the change. And that's an ongoing cycle of human nature. So I'm speaking to that based on the fact that we've now engaged into how do we plan to move this forward. So I'm asking every single person, speak to everyone you know, get ratepayers associations going in every single street. We will come up with a draft plan of how these things should operate. If you need us, I'm willing to take up my entire time. Set up meetings, go through Zane or Batman, get us in your area. We will come there, we will address a street, 5 people, 10 people, just to get them involved in their community. And this is apolitical. This is something that must be done. It has to be done. If it's not done, our communities are going to be facing disaster, and then it's going to be too late for us to move forward. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Said. And one of the things that Imtiaz has always said, and we've always spoken about in the background, is we need to learn to toy, because I think we're too complacent and we just take things at face value, lay back, doesn't affect us, we're not going to get involved, but it's about time that change does happen. And again, we're very, very vociferous in saying active citizenry is very, very important at every level. I mean, you can see I'm wearing my community police forum cap, and that we wear various caps. We need to empower the people, and this is exactly what we're doing by tonight's virtual launch. So there you have it, people. Zane's number, again, is 0837865096. If he's overflooded, he will then send things, or rather queries, to me, and we will get this going. We are ready to take action. We're here to empower. We're here to help communities to empower themselves and take it to the next level. So I don't know if there's any other input. It's already, I think, we 1 hour 40 minutes into this meeting. It is a Saturday night. There's no movies. Everything is still closed because of COVID. So unless you're downloading movies from from another website, any input, please, people. This is your not last opportunity, but this is an opportunity before we conclude the meeting.
Perhaps people can actually give us, you know, an indication, whoever's listening in, whether they have ratepayers association set up in their areas already. Because I can tell you, basically in the Chatsworth area, there's no ratepayers. I think just Silver Glen has got a ratepayers association, but they are aligned to the Civic Federation. Now with the Joint Ratepayers Association, is there going to be a constitution there, which will, you know, where everybody aligns themselves to? So to do that, we need the constitution as a guideline. And those who don't have ratepayers association needs to have a timeline. Well, it's the silly season now, so I don't know whether it's okay to start mobilizing to have a kickoff for those areas who don't have a ratepayers association to try and set one up at the moment.
Thanks for that, yes, look, we'll get the wheel in motion. What we will do is start sending out our information on the WhatsApp groups and various platforms, and set up a specific email address so we can then start collating that kind of information. A few months ago, I did see a notice coming through on some of the Chatsworth group to say forthcoming attraction, cross-mall residents, or rather a ratepayers association, but that didn't get off the ground. I had the logo there somewhere. But having said that, to answer your question on the constitution, I do have the unenviable task given to me to develop constitutions and to develop policies and those kind of things, which I work on. And collectively, of course, I don't like to say I, collectively with my team. And once the constitution has been ratified or finalized, it will be sent out to everybody who would need that. And of course, the ward development plan is there, and we will get those things out in so much as we need to during the timeline. And of course, you said it is the silly season. So as we move along, hopefully by January, things can start developing. And we need to keep our eye on the State of the Nation address in February, because there's also going to be the announcement of the local government elections date. So we've got lots of things running parallel in terms of what we have to do with that. Mr. Said, is there anything else you would like to say before we round up? or anybody else before I take Mr. Said? Anybody else? It's your chance now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Just one more thing,
Okay.
not to forget bringing the youth in.
Yes,
I think
very
that's
important.
very imperative that the youth start getting trained from now how to move forward.
Yes, and to add to that also, again, it brings me back to the issue when we last discussed the youth involvement. Again, at CPF level, community levels, at every single level, youth is not involved. So as us getting advanced in age in our years, as it starts rolling by, we cannot speak for the youth. I, as a man, cannot speak for a woman, and you as a woman, okay, you as a woman can speak for a man, right? No issue about that. But what we are saying, that there has to also be a succession plan. If we don't have a succession plan, who's going to be taking over from us? So the youth needs to be empowered. And I think along with the ratepayers associations, let's have a youth arm in there, because there are issues that affect them with student accommodation, for example, traveling to school, traveling to universities, part-time jobs, and those kind of things. So it's multifaceted, it's wide, and we need to take all of it, unpack it, and then repackage it and give it out to the communities. I think that's where we are. Omi, that's valuable input there. Thank you very much for that. If anybody else would like to give input quickly, Mr. Said, you want to come in?
I think, Bats, I think it's important for us to get a feel of everyone that's here. If they can just give us a comment as to whether we're going in the right direction or not. As much as we might have conceptualized all of this and said that this is the direction we need to go, I think it's important for everyone to understand that we don't know everything. And based on that, we'd love input from everyone. Constructive criticism is always welcome in terms of direction and all of that. And I'd also like to call on Zain to actually say a few words, because he's always quiet in these things and he keeps his mic off, but he just sends text, right?
You know why I'm laughing, Indias.
Yeah. So with that being said, Zain's always got a throat problem or something like that there. So I'd like to call on him for him to say a few words. But also with that, before he comes in, I'd like for every single person here to give us some comment as to how they feel about this. Because what I've noticed attending quite a few different meetings at different levels within the forums that we platform in, is that we might say something in meetings and everyone would nod their head or be silent. However, as soon as they step out into the corridors, it would be that 1 or 2 people that would say that, this thing's never going to take off, right? Now, based on that, we need to be clear in understanding that some of us may have the capacity, some of us may not. Our job is to make sure that everyone understands where we're coming from. And sometimes I labor on issues so that I drive home the objective of what we're trying to achieve. So I'd love input from every single person, whether it's positive or negative, so that way we can get a clear understanding and maybe a mandate to say that we are going in the direction that we are, and it is the correct one. Because we don't want to go down this route and then obviously come down to later on and say, maybe it was the wrong course of action or something like that. So I'm calling on everyone right now. If it's just one word that you want to say, whether it's a yay or nay, or whether you approve of this, whether you want to tell us that, guys, you're going in the wrong direction, that's fine. Let's just go ahead with it and let's get those inputs going. And then after that, we'll get Zain in to give us his final words, and then maybe you can close.
Well, I will say this is the best decision we could have made.
Aye.
Thanks.
Aye.
I think, Imtiaz, you wanted some constructive criticism. Personally, when you speak, I think a better word would be you'd love to have a non-racial society and not instead of a multiracial. Non-racial is, in my opinion, a better word. So that's my first criticism. And the second one that I want to say is I've listened to all of you very carefully, and I still maintain I'm a very persistent guy. We are not using the right tools. We are going to be frustrated. I'm not being pessimistic. This is after 26 years of democracy in this country. If our councillors can't get through at municipal level or municipality level, can't get through Umi just alluded to having all those problems and writing to the speaker and not getting any joy. We have to take the legal route. The legal route is separated. There's a separation of powers. And if 26 years we're writing letters and emails, we're getting nothing in terms of service delivery or bare minimum. If we're going to continue in the same fashion with all the rampant corruption and nepotism and cronyism, we're just not going to get it going. I'm persistent in what I'm saying, because after 26 years, we've got no joy. You're going to write to speakers, you're going to write to everybody, they're just going to ignore you. So until you go to a separate entity, or the three wings of our government is the parliament, and the executive, and the judiciary. The judiciary is our only source of help. I think I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much for that, Bo, and it's well noted. Thank you. Imtiaz, you want to come in there?
Yes, I'm in total agreement, and I think moving forward, it speaks to us speaking as a collective, us uniting in our voices, and us speaking in terms of the platforms we need to speak at. And the only way that can be done, it cannot be done as individuals, it needs to be done as a collective. And I think that's why there is this movement happening at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Imtiaz. Any other comments from anybody?
Hi.
Hi,
Can you hear me?
This? Who have been speaking to?
Vishnu Sharma.
Thank you, Vishnu.
Sharma. The main objective of this discussion that we've had is to create a joint representation for ratepayers. So I think we'll use the WhatsApp platform, to get all communications going. That's one. Two, there was a time many years ago, approximately between 10 to 15 years ago, where every district had a ratepayers association. And that became defunct for whatever reason. Now, we need to get back to somebody from each of those ratepayers association and try and revive that, because that particular group of people understand why we had a ratepayers association. It's no use. It would be good not to preach to people who are converted already. You see, so we contact these people and do that. Then the other thing is, whilst majority of the suggestions presently was about grievances, which grievance is going to be handled by the Joint Ratepayers Association, I think we would. It'll be prudent for us to now set up a step-by-step procedure, like was stated earlier, that each street must have 2 reps. So, for example, we are here in Parlock. We've got the Parlock Policing Forum, Community Forum, whatever forum that is looking after the various roads here. We get in touch with them, and then each group starts communicating on this WhatsApp. And then just by looking at this WhatsApp on the various districts, from the various communications that will come across, we will get a sort of a yardstick judgment of how large a following we're going to get. And whatever queries anybody wishes to ask about, relating to the formation of this group, not the handling at the moment of each person's, at the moment you've got a housing problem in Newlands, you've got something happening in Spingo and something not happening in Chatsworth, etc. Though that's going to be the issues to be handled by this new forum that's going to be created. But let's work step by step on exactly what we're going to do till we get to this joint forum creation. And once the joint forum is done, even with the minimum number of people, to that forum will be the various, even if there's 10 districts represented. Once that forum is created and these 10 districts start with their problem, they will make inroads as to achievement, non-achievement, COCTA cooperation, and other issues. The next thing that I would like to add is that the legal route is the way to go, but it is not practicable for this reason. You have a community policing forum here or any forum that is guarding any road, and you can't get the guy to give a 200 rand subscription. The legal cost to make an action against any organ of parliament or any organ of the state requires advocates, and that runs into thousands. So the attorney is just not going to come and give his services because he is a resident in the district. You may get a certain amount of discount or anything like that, but it's not going to happen just like that. So let's exhaust whatever avenues there are. But in the interim, if you want to take the legal action, let's start looking at our bank balance of this new forum. And then only. So every energy now must be driven towards how we're going to create this new forum and unpack this new forum. And the WhatsApp platform that you have got, has to be more engineered to just creating this forum. Once the forum is created, then we'll push in our problems. Thank you.
Thank you very much there, Mr. Sharma. Good input
Can I
there.
respond, please?
It's noted. Yeah, I'll give you a platform in a moment. Imtiaz?
Based on the argument, I think it's very important for us to have people like him on board. And remember, we haven't finalized exactly who sits on this board. These boards are made up of people that have common interest or common problems, so to speak. And then as a collective, we then address those issues moving forward. So basically what we're trying to form is a coordinating platform in terms of what needs to be done in terms of the issues that we face at the time, right? So we're fully cognizant and aware, and we've made ourselves very self-aware of these things, that we don't have the solutions unless we fully itemize the problem or table the problem and then discuss the different angles by which we need to approach it. So I'm saying that not everything needs to lead to litigation. I mean, there's different platforms, the Public Protector, there's COCTA, there's the Human Rights Council, but unless we identify our issues and put them in their respective categories, we then can't take them any further. So when we attend ratepayers meetings, and like I said earlier, that the reason for the street committees is to basically stand as filters. So the initial tools with regard to your immediate service delivery will be attended to autonomously or through that committee. That's how it is, So I'm saying, when we're looking at it from the perspective of what you're saying, is that the street committees need to be there, the area committees need to be there, and then you've got your district committee. And if we have it as a collective and speaking in unison, then we're addressing collective issues, but it's over a vast area that speaks to exactly the same type of issues that we're dealing with. So with that being said, I'm fully aware that yes, we're going to have to deal with issues. Not everything needs to lead to litigation. I'm saying ultimately, when we do come up to the issues of litigation, we will now develop, for example, town planners, environmentalists, all of individuals that have the capacity to address our issues, give us information, give us assistance, so that way we have direction in terms of what we want to achieve and what's our project plan in order to achieve the goals that we want to achieve, whilst fully understanding that that is the right course of action to take. So I think that's the basis by which we want to form this, yes.
Yes, thank you very much for this, for that, Imtiaz. And we're not negating the fact that Bo has brought up the issue that litigation is important and it is noted as such, and also the fact that Vishnu, I think I got the name right. Please forgive me if it's wrong. That it is also a financial issue there. So we don't want to labor too much on that discussion because we are in the formative stage now and we want to kick it forward. Bo, you did want to say something, please. Please continue. And
I think I'm covered. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I think I'm covered. The other guy alluded to the Public Protector, the South African Human Rights, and also the City Ombudsman. So when I spoke about legal pathways, Those are firstly, after giving the so-called time limits, yes, you pursue that. Because now in South Africa, what we need to understand that when we engage in dialogue and when there's no consequent management, these guys who are in powers of the municipality and things like that, they seem to have no care about the human being. And we are sentient human beings, we're emotional, and at the end of the day, they just don't bother. They treat us like we are some sort of robots and we got no feelings and no, cares about our families and our friends and neighbors. So yes, you're quite right. A starting point would be the public protector, the ombudsmans and things like that. And failing everything up, perhaps then we can set up a fund to go forward. But as I said, I'm covered. Thank you very much. And before I end, be safe. It's the silly season. Wishing everybody a safe and festive period. Take care.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Bo. Don't go away just yet. Is there anybody else who would like to make any comments? I think we've discussed important issues. We now going to develop actually the constitution is there. We just need to finalize a few things there, and I will be consulting with Imtiaz on that, and we will be then moving forward in terms of going. So I think it's everybody's responsibility here, if you want to take the responsibility upon yourselves, to now speak into your own sort of people in your community and start throwing out the idea, planting those seeds for the ratepayers associations and start getting that going. I think we can round up the meeting now.
Can I just say something to you, Batman?
Yeah, sure.
In the last, when was it? The closing date was on the 5th of October. There was a proposal to amend the lands schemes management by the municipality. We quickly got, quite a few areas together. And what we did in a space of a week, we had 10,000 objections, against that proposal. For far too long, they have taken it that communities are apathetic, they won't be bothered about anything which is going on. We shook the municipality so much so that they actually came out on a Sunday and did a media release to say that we are fear-mongering. We as communities, knowing what's going on around us, we could read and understand what that proposals were all about. And yet we have political parties sitting in council who just passed it through. So this is what the power we have, power in numbers. And we can make changes, provided everybody stands together.
That's true. Thank you very much for that, Umi. Any parting words from Imtiaz before I round up, Imtiaz?
I think that if we can get comment from everyone else, even if it's just 2 words, if everyone else can just put in their inputs, and then we can have Zain address us.
I did open the floor, and I think people are not saying anything. I also asked if anybody doesn't want to speak through their microphones, you're welcome to put this on the group chat here while we are together. Zain, please, if you want to say something, your email, have we set up an email specifically for this task?
Yeah, we have an email. It's activecitizenscoalition@gmail.com. It's a placeholder email address for now until we go live with our individual mailboxes. But for now, I think everyone can channel all of the information. Any questions they have, any comments that they may make, they can communicate with us at activecitizenscoalition, one word, @gmail.com. And it's on the chat at the moment. I think Steffi put it up about earlier.
Thank you, Zain. Please, people, you're welcome to talk. The floor is open for the next 1 second. Anybody needs to say anything? I think everybody has said, everybody has listened, and we've taken note of all the comments here. Nobody going 1, 2, 3. No, nothing. We're already 2 hours into this meeting. People, just some advice from, well, not advice, but just an appeal or a plea. Please, COVID is still very much with us, and there is a second wave hitting us. We're not really aware of it right now. Please be safe. Take social responsibility, because we are the leaders of, we think we're the leaders of the community. So we need to lead by example, and let's flatten the curve together and eliminate COVID-19 from our communities in all its forms. No comments? Thank you. Mr. Sayed, nobody's saying anything. Would you like to say anything before we go?
Yeah, I think that's it's fair to say that silence is approval by virtue of what's happening here. And people might be shy or whatever it is. But I also want to ask everyone, if they can, just send Zain a WhatsApp with your name and your area. Obviously, moving forward, we are going to have or host further virtual meetings to discuss things or developments moving forward. So I'm saying that please send Zain a WhatsApp. Let's get involved in your community. Allow us the opportunity to come to your area, speak to people with our plans. Yes, there is a lot of negativity around us. And as leaders, we've learned to accept that. Sometimes people like to push back when it comes down to change because they're set in their ways. We're not there to take over anyone's platform. We're not there to come into particular areas and try and lead people. Our job is to create leaders, to facilitate the process of leadership, is to empower people, is to get people involved, is to bring them to the fore when it comes down to the issues of their community. And that's our main task. We're basically coordinators of leaders. That's all we really plan to do. And that's all we want to do moving forward. Thanks very much. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Said. It's been a very informative meeting. And sometimes, I have to tell you to stop now, guys. I'm just teasing. Everybody whose names here I cannot mention, it was a pleasure meeting you on Zoom. And please be safe. We will all be in touch. Don't forget to WhatsApp Zain. The email address is there on the site, activecitizenscoalition@gmail.com. Please make use of it and let's get that going. I've also, somebody says, thank you guys, Viva, well done. So all those messages are there. Have a lovely Saturday evening and have a good weekend. Only one day left of the weekend. Is back to the grinding stone on Monday. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum, namaste, vanakkam. God bless you all.